Hello, everyone. Amanda Williams, MD, MPH, and I am here today to talk about heart health because it's February, which means it is Heart Month. And this has been going on for decades now. So, just a little history on the American National February Heart Month. This started back in 1964, so under President Lyndon B. Johnson. And he wanted to kind of have a month of awareness to the American people so people could kind of have a bit of a better understanding on the ramifications basically of having a issue when it comes to diet, exercise, and the long-term implications when it comes to our heart. And I think that that's really important because you think, okay, this is, how many years later? 57 years later. And we're talking 1964. So you would think that if there's one month that's dedicated every single year to the awareness of heart disease, such as coronary heart disease, high blood pressure, all of the different factors that come into play when we think about cardiovascular disease, heart attacks, strokes, that we would be doing better as a nation. Unfortunately, even though we have a whole month that's dedicated to heart health, we actually are kind of doing worse. And just for worldwide statistics, which includes statistics coming from the United States as well, there's over 18 million deaths annually. Over 18 million deaths annually due to heart disease. And when we put that into the big scheme of things, that's in the last decade an over 17% increase in deaths annually. And every single year, when it comes to people who are diagnosed with cardiovascular disease to some degree or another, we are looking at over 530 million people every single year diagnosed with cardiovascular disease. Now, what's even more alarming with that is we have, once again, in just one decade, that's an increase of over 26%. So this is a major problem. And we can look at the numbers here in the United States and recognize that, coronary artery disease and hypertension and the mounting evidence of how diet is really playing this central role into this. And we are seeing this kind of spread worldwide. So, the standard American diet, which is incredibly sad and should be looked at as sad and should bring a tear to your eye, is a primary driving cause of this worldwide. Now, we also recognize that there are other factors that come into play, such as the lack of physical activity by most Americans. Most Americans, statistically speaking, are incredibly inactive. So, and I'm not saying that you have to go out and, join a gym or become a marathon runner by any stretch of the imagination. However, we do have to move. And if we are not moving, then that is a major problem. So when we incorporate all of the different factors, we can look at diet. We can look at lack of exercise. We can look at the rise of obesity that is occurring not just here in this country, but once again, worldwide. When we look at the chronic comorbid conditions that can exacerbate or worsen heart disease, such as diabetes, prediabetes, metabolic syndrome. When we look at the rate of, people who are taking cholesterol medications, all of these different factors that we know certainly play a role into heart disease, then we need to be more proactive. We just can't talk about it for the month of February and say, try and eat healthy and, get a little bit more exercise. This is something that should be part of your everyday routine because you only get one heart and you want to make sure that you're taking care of it. Like I said, your heart and your brain are pretty darn important, along with your liver, actually everything in the body, right? Because it's a full system and it's a machine that works. It's like having a beautiful car, but if it has no wheels, you're not going anywhere. So this is the same thing when we look at the human body. We have to make sure that we are doing everything in our power to incorporate the right nutrients, the nutrients that optimize the way that our heart functions. And we know that our heart is run through this electrical conduction system, which is heavily reliant on electrolytes. When we think about the movement, the flow of those electrolytes in and out of the cell. Magnesium, sodium, potassium, calcium, this beautiful ballet that actually occurs. But if our diets are lacking in these nutrients, then we are already up against it. And this is what we see. We see the magnesium deficiencies. We understand that Americans do not get enough magnesium. So, at minimum, we're thinking about cardiovascular health. We should at least include magnesium into our little arsenal. So, diet number one, first and foremost, you have to pay attention to the foods that you are eating, which is why the Mediterranean diet, once again, I know I sound like a broken record, but hey, the science is there, the data supports it. It doesn't matter which disease state you look at, you are going to find that the Mediterranean diet is the most widely studied and the most well proven diet overall. And it's not a diet, it's just a style of eating. It's incorporating in high antioxidant foods, foods that are rich in vitamins and minerals, foods that contain very important and required fatty acids, getting the proper balance of fiber and protein. All of these things are incredibly important to the health of our heart. So we have to take all of this into account. And if you are not physically active, figure out a way to incorporate this into your daily routine. Find something that you enjoy doing. Maybe you do just enjoy sitting on the couch and watching TV, but figure out a way to be more active in doing that. Do some exercises while you're sitting there and watching your favorite TV show. There are ways to make sure that we are getting the blood moving and that our heart, which is a muscle, is getting the appropriate workout. Remember, when the heart is overworking and really trying to forcefully do its job, it starts to enlarge. Well, that's the one muscle we don't need to enlarge and we don't want to enlarge. It's one thing if your biceps get bigger, but you certainly don't want your heart to enlarge. And when we are not caring for our heart and giving the heart the appropriate foods and nutrients and antioxidants and healthy fats, then it struggles. So we have to be cognizant of these things and we have to take our own initiative to optimize the health of our heart. We have to take care of our heart. You only get one. So, magnesium, this is just basics of heart health. We know that it's required. So, taking magnesium on a daily basis, very, very important. But also think about other things that the heart needs. And those little myocytes, the heart muscle itself requires energy. Think about all the work it has to do all day long for us, all night long, every single day, day in, day out. So we have to think about the energy. So this is where things like ubiquinol, coenzyme Q10 comes into play. This is where things like carnitine can be very, very beneficial. You have to think about what we're technically lacking. I always say we can look at things very simple. And if we are toxic in something, we want to remove that toxicity. So if it's the bad food, remove the bad food. If we are deficient in something, then we want to replenish that. So if we're low in magnesium, we want to take more magnesium. If we don't have adequate coenzyme Q10 for a variety of different reasons, then we want to make sure that we are taking ubiquinol, that highly absorbable form. But we can also look at other very important heart healthy nutrients. We can look at things like resveratrol, for example, that we know is packed with all of these powerful antioxidants, but does more than just targets oxidative stress and free radicals. It also does a wonderful job when it comes to easing inflammation. And we certainly want to make sure that throughout our vascular system, that inflammation is kept at bay. We can look at things like tocotrienols. We know that that very powerful form of vitamin E does a wonderful job when it comes at targeting the oxidation of your cholesterol. We don't want oxidized LDL particles circulating throughout our body. Not a good idea. We can look at other things that really help with the cardiac contractility, which is the natural pumping action of the heart. So we can look at things such as ribose, for example, taurine. So a wonderful option would be like Cardio HX, for example, which is a blend of hawthorn extract, which is very, very beneficial when we think about cardiac contractility. In many European countries, they actually use hawthorn as a cardiotonic or as a utilization, another alternative to a prescribed medication for people who have congestive heart failure, where the heart is really, really struggling to have that proper contractility. So, hawthorn extract, magnesium, and taurine are all in that cardio HX. This is a really great option. And for many people who, even if your issue isn't high blood pressure or coronary artery disease, it's still advantageous to make sure that we have the appropriate nutrients on board each and every single day to care for our heart. So, this is just kind of the basics. We think about antioxidants, we think about vitamins and minerals that the heart really, really needs, even things like vitamin D, incredibly important when it comes to cardiovascular health. There's so many different options. I definitely encourage you to talk to one of our healthcare experts at any of our locations, and they can really help to give you that guidance to make sure that you are taking the right nutrients to optimize and support your heart. So, that is all that I have for you for today. I want to thank you so much for tuning in, and I will be back with you in a few more days to talk about more wonderful nutrients